This is Geek Gab with your hosts, Brian Niemeier and Daddy Warpig. We are back. That's right, Geek Gab every week, Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 1 hour of all play, no work, anything geeky goes, broadcasting to you live, as always, from the secret bunker deep underneath the House of Geekery. By the way, you can catch me, Daddy Warpig, online on Twitter at Daddy_Warpig, at Daddy_Warpig, and you can catch Brian also on Twitter. And I'm not going to bother spelling his name because, well, I can't do it off the top of my head, but I have quite thoughtfully provided links to our Twitter accounts in the comments, in the description of the video, and also links to Brian's blog and my blog, The House of Geekery, daddywarpig.com, daddywarpig.com. All of it's good, all of it's fun, all of it's interesting. Check it out. I'm going to stop, as is my wont at this point in the show. I'm going to stop to take a small sip of water and allow Brian to get a word in edgewise. Go for it, Brian.
Good evening, everybody. Those of us who are joining us, a lot of you are probably going to be hearing this over the next week because of what tonight is.
Yes, it is. It's Super Bowl Sunday. I heard about that. And that is actually, normally we have our third co-host here, Doranal. He is not with us this week because, well, his wife is a fan of the Seattle Seahawks, and so he is sitting there watching the Super Bowl with two teams he doesn't really care about. So our sympathies go out to Doranal, despite the fact he chose not to come on the show tonight.
Yeah, but seriously, I hope you folks appreciate it that we here, me and Daddy Warpig, are taking a bullet for you. We are denying ourselves this time-honored tradition to bring you the finest in podcasting entertainment.
Yeah, it was hard. It was rough. I had to physically almost pick myself up and carry myself down the stairs to get here instead of going and watching the pregame show. Apparently, I heard Elsa from Frozen was singing. Yes, it was that exciting, I heard. I still haven't seen Frozen. I confess.
I haven't seen all of it.
Okay. I missed the memo. There was a memo that got sent out sometime last year. I missed the memo. The memo says if you want to pay attention to popular culture, if you want to be a part of popular culture, if you want to watch movies or TV shows or video games or read articles, you have to have seen Frozen. I missed the memo because everybody talks about it. That's not an exaggeration. I've seen political columnists make references to Frozen that I don't get. I'm just staring at the screen. I'm furrowing my brow. I'm like, I don't understand that. I feel like I should understand it. That's something that I probably could understand had I watched the movie. So if you want to engage with people, if you want to have conversations with normal human beings who aren't necessarily gamers or geeks, if you want to have conversations with anybody under the age of 14, you have to have seen Frozen. Otherwise, you're cut off from popular culture. They just don't want to talk to you because you don't get any of the references.
Right. I mean, luckily, I really don't deal with that demographic a lot anyway. So, I mean, I have a couple nephews who are like an infant and then 5. But I suppose my older nephew does enjoy Frozen. Although he's also got his Kindle and streaming YouTube on his cell phone at the same time. He multitasks. So he's never been that engaged with it.
I tell you the problem with Frozen. This is what stopped me. Is I watched the first 10 minutes and it did not make any damn sense. And everyone was telling me how awesome this movie was, and I actually sat down to watch it. I sat down, I watched the first 10 minutes, and I couldn't continue because I was so confused as to what was going on. And so like a week later, I was talking to my sister. I said, have you seen Frozen? She said, oh yeah, I've seen Frozen. I love Frozen. It's so good. I said, tell me what the first 10 minutes are like, because they didn't make any sense to me. Please explain it to me. She's like, oh, no, the first 10 minutes don't make any sense. And I'm like, I knew it! I knew it wasn't just me! I knew it wasn't just me. Nobody gets the first 10 minutes of Frozen. They're like a barely lucid fever dream pouring out of the writer as he's typing up on his typewriter. Nothing makes sense. You have to watch past that before things start making sense, and I just wasn't patient enough. I have a short attention span when it comes to things like that. And so I guess I'm just going to have to grit my teeth, sit through the 10 minutes again. It was the troll that just kicked me over. I was like, what the hell is this troll doing here? What's going on? Why are the parents selling their daughter or buying their daughters? I don't get this. This is confusing to me, and I don't like it. So I turned it off and did something else. I watched something else, probably something with a lot of violence, because that calmed me down. So I'm going to have to grit it and get through it. I feel like Captain America from the Avengers.
Well, that's not a bad way to feel.
Well, yeah, he's sitting there, and they're making all these jokes around him. Oh, he's another, Einstein or whatever, and he's just staring around confused, and finally they make one thing that he gets. He's like, I get that. I got that reference. That's the way I am around Frozen people.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just staring at them. They're talking.
I thought you meant that watching Frozen somehow made you feel at the peak of human achievement in every possible category. I get you now.
No, that would be nice. That would be awesome. I would have seen Frozen like 10 times already. If that were true, I'd be a binge Frozen. I'd just turn Frozen on in the morning and leave it in the background while I went around and did awesome stuff. That would be like Popeye, the Sailor Man, with his spinach, frozen. I would just put that on an iPod or something and leave that running the whole time.
So you've played, turn it off. So you've played, I'm sure, Palladium RPGs like Rifts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. I was like, that is a weird but awesome idea for Popeye syndrome. Remember the drawback? Popeye, which is basically what you're talking about, where it's psychosomatic. But if you take that drawback, your character needs to be exposed to a certain thing to use like some skill or power he has because he thinks it's true.
But it isn't. Yeah,
but watching Frozen would just be the weirdest trigger condition for a superpower. But I love it.
You can see that some poor accountant is sitting in his office, and all of a sudden this gigantic robot busts into the city, starts busting apart buildings, going on a rampage, and everybody's screaming, "Oh, Mega Man! Oh, Mega Man, save us!" And he's like, "I'll save you in, what, hour and a half, 2 hours? Give me a sec." Click. Turns on the VCR. Yeah. Worst.
Go ahead.
Just the worst superhero ever. That was it.
Yeah. Well, and of course when you said accountant, I immediately thought of Larry.
That's probably why I said accountant, is we thought of Larry. By the way, we do this show every week. I'm going to say this to the audience. I don't know if you're new or if you've turned in before. We do the show every week. Sometimes we have guests. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we have 3 co-hosts. Sometimes we don't. We strive to have 3 co-hosts and want to have guests pretty regularly. Last week our guest was a New York Times best-selling author, Larry Correia. So if you didn't listen to the show, if you haven't listened to the show, we have all of them available on YouTube. You can download them and listen to. And the reason why that's pertinent is he started off as an accountant in his career. So that's why this has come up. But you should listen. We do a good job on the shows. We've had some great guests on. Larry was a killer guest. Had a lot of interesting stories to tell. If you're a fan of speculative fiction, you like science fiction, fantasy, horror, whatever, check his books out. They're awesome. They're fun. They're exciting.
He's a pistol.
He is. He was. He was a great guest. You see, now this is the thing. We sat down to do this show, and I didn't know if you were going to be on or not. I confess, I was like panicking. I'm thinking, do I have to talk for an entire hour all by myself? I mean, I can do it. It doesn't strike me as very fun, especially since I haven't had anything really I haven't seen anything new that I could talk about or anything that got me excited to talk about stuff. I feel kind of deflated because it's been a while since I've seen anything that has got me so excited. I just want to talk about it a lot. And I don't know if that's me or if that's just the winter season and I'm feeling blah, or if it's just I've hit that age where everything goes to crap and you think popular culture just sucks, and so you retreat into a big mound of classical music CD. I hope not. I'd hate to have to do that if that was how old I had gotten to, where they start mailing you free classical music CDs because you can't listen to pop music anymore, or if it's really just that popular culture has started to suck so bad that I can't stand it anymore, which would be, I don't know, as depressing or more depressing. But that's the point I've reached, is nothing is just kicking me in the engine so hard that I want to talk about it. I'm like, yes, I want to go on the air, I want to talk about this. But you had something that did that to you, right? Am I wrong? Was that just a misinterpretation?
No, it's not just you. And first of all, it's not depressing if pop culture really does suck. That just means you have good taste.
Okay. Well, that's reassuring.
Yeah, I really haven't listened to top 40 radio or watched MTV, really consumed any mass media outlet in probably about 10 years, honestly. But then again, I'm from the wrong century. I was 52 when I was in 6th grade. I've been a curmudgeon in training for most of my life, so I get what you're saying. But the thing is,
so that's why you're a John C. Wright fan.
Yes, or perhaps I don't know which way the causal relationship goes, but yeah, guilty is charged. But yeah, that's why we have indie. If you don't like what the major studios or the major labels are putting out, there's some college kid who went and got a camcorder and grabbed a friend and was like, hey, let's make a movie, and turned out something better than Hollywood's serving up.
I had the most hipster moment earlier today.
Ooh, do tell.
Seriously, it was pure hipster. I was almost embarrassed. I'm reading through something on... No, I was reading through Pizzagate, the hashtag. I can explain that in a bit, but I was reading through Pizzagate and the hashtag, and somebody said, oh, I'm just so sick of this Pizzagate. I'm going to go to SoundCloud and listen to this band. And it's a group I've never heard of. And I'm like, what the heck? I was bored. I had some time. I clicked on the link, and I listened to SoundCloud. It's a band called Oh Wonder, and it's spectacular. It's just brilliant. It was just gorgeous, gorgeous song. And then I went through and I checked out the other songs they had on SoundCloud. They only have 6 songs, ever. They're a brand new group. Both of them are veteran musicians, and they only started publishing music 6 months ago. This song that I heard literally came out today. It was released this morning. Huh. And I started listening to it 8 hours after it was released. That's the most hipster I've ever been in my entire life, is getting in on something 8 hours after it's been released. And of course, there's hundreds of comments on SoundCloud, and 10,000 people follow them, so I'm not that hipster. I'm not so hipster that I'm beyond the cutting edge. But these... all 6 songs are brilliant. All 6 songs are really cool to listen to. This is the moment in which I wish we could put music on the air. We can't, unfortunately, because of copyright things and whatever, but I'm going to put links to the group. Literally, I have the links already saved. I'm going to put links to the group in the description. If you want to go to SoundCloud, listen to them. They've got 6 songs right now. You can listen to them for free in 128K MP3, and then in another 6 months, in September, they're actually going to release the album. So this is just a teaser to get people excited for the album. It's indie pop that's very, very mellowed out, very, very chill, very, very awesome. I just loved it. And so I found a way to download them and put them into my iTunes, and when they release the album, I'll buy the album. It's great to have. So the band's called Oh Wonder. The 2 songs I loved the most are Lose It, which is the one that was released today, and Body Gold, which is the first one they released. and it's actually modern pop culture that if you start listening to it now, they're almost unknown. So you can get that, that frisson of being just a tiny little bit hipster without being so arrogant that you think you're better than everyone else because so few people know about the group right now.
Well, I can understand the appeal of saying I listened to it before they were cool, before they were known.
Yeah, I don't really get that. I don't get that because I don't care. I don't care if other people like it or dislike it. I'm kind of obnoxious that way. It's like, okay, that's cool. I mean, I still listen to my Milli Vanilli CD, which I bought in the store. Bought it in the store used for $30. So,
wow.
In 1999, that's how much I like Milli Vanilli. I was willing to buy them in the store used for $30 for years after everybody started hating them. So. Oh, no, 14 years. Sorry, 14 years after everybody started hating them. That's how much I like Milli Vanilli and how little I cared that other people had stopped liking them. So
that is, you've gone through hipster, come out the other side. That's like a negative image of it. I got into this so long after everyone else did.
Just don't care. So, yeah. But Oh Wonder, great group. Lose It, Body Gold. The link's already in the description if you want to check it out on SoundCloud. We totally went a different direction from the thing you were excited about, though.
Are you excited about something?
Yeah. Is this going to be a spoiler, or is this going to spoil things for me and the audience?
Is what?
You talking about the thing that you were excited about talking about. The movie you were excited about?
Oh, okay. Yeah, Frozen. No, I know what you mean. Well, if you guys remember, last week Larry recommended us a film which he said had the best knife fight ever put on film, and that was The Man from Nowhere. It's a Korean flick from sometime recently. Everybody uses flip phones still, but I don't know, it was sometime after 2006 was made. I suppose I could look it up, but that would be work. It had to do a spoiler-free sort of take on it. It's an action movie. It's
2010.
Thank you. See, that's why we keep you around.
Yes.
But
the fastest fingers on IMDb.
Absolutely. You got to be. I can understand. You've been training pretty intensively lately. You'll have to explain Pizzagate later because I don't know what that is, but it sounds delicious.
That's half the fun of Pizzagate is people showing up going, "What the hell is this?
What the hell is that?" Yeah. So anyway, yeah, The Man from Nowhere. It's pretty much about, it starts out with your typical gangland stuff, drug running with the twist of illegal organ trade. Organs sometimes obtained after the manner of the old urban legend of waking up in a bathtub full of ice with a note saying "Get to the ICU quick." But yeah, there's some twists and turns. It mainly reminded me, at least the first half, of The Professional with Sean Reno and Natalie Portman.
Okay.
Because there's a cute little street urchin kid involved who kind of gets mixed up with this hard case, and then emotional leverage ensues. So again, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I gotta agree with Larry. That was an epic knife fight. Multiple participants, quite an array of weaponry. Because it wasn't just knives; it also involves hatchets and other sundry implements, which you stick into soft things that scream and bleed. But yeah, it's exciting. I definitely recommend it. It's on Netflix now.
It is available for streaming on Netflix.
Yes.
So if you have a Netflix account, and it might be available for streaming on Amazon, I'm not sure. I only had time to look up Netflix while Brian was talking.
I think Doranal said, because I talked to him earlier, and he thought it wasn't, or at least it wasn't free on Prime, so mileage may vary.
And just because I have easy access to the copy and paste key, I'm going to copy and paste the Netflix link into the description so you can, if you have Netflix, you can just click on the link and it'll open up automatically in your Netflix in the browser, because, you know, that's the level of customer service we provide around here.
Cool.
Is it subtitled, or was it is it dubbed?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the weirdest thing. Me and my buddies were trying to find a version of it to watch on Friday, and we saw that there is a version on YouTube, but it's just the raw Korean. So, but we noticed there were subtitles at certain points. We're wondering, that's odd, because those aren't English subtitles. Those are like Chinese or Japanese subtitles or something. So we found the version on Netflix, and we specifically sought out a subtitled version. So there might be a dub. I'm not sure, but dubs suck. So yeah, I'm that kind of movie snob. But yeah, we got what was ostensibly the subtitled version. So, you know, Korean dialogue with English subs. But then there were a few curveballs in there, because it turns out that like half of the characters are Vietnamese, and they're speaking Vietnamese, so
Okay.
they're subtitled in Korean during their scenes, whether you get the dub or not, probably. And then there's one guy, just one dude, who speaks all English, yet everyone else understands him and replies in their native language, but he only speaks English. And they just don't do anything for him. Like, hey, you can hear this guy just fine. He projects okay. So it's very cosmopolitan. It's a polyglot movie.
I just checked on Amazon. It is not available right now on Amazon streaming, on Amazon Prime. It's listed, but it's listed as currently unavailable. So,
Okay.
and we're like we should be getting paid from these companies for referring stuff like this. Can we set that up? Is there a way I can like make a couple of pennies off of every person who decides, hey, that sounds great, I'll click in? That would be awesome.
There's the Amazon Associates program.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna skip over that. We're like exciting people, or excited people, giving out, you know, hey, here's some cool stuff. Hey, here's some more cool stuff. I want a kickback. I don't know. Is that corrupt of me to want a kickback from companies if I find something cool and I send it their way?
No, that's just sensible of you. The worker deserves his wages.
So, Man from Nowhere. Was there anything else you saw or played or read this week that struck you as being particularly cool?
Well, I just for the first time started reading Stephen King's It, the original 1985 novel.
Okay, it's a
Yeah,
door stopper.
It is. I was going to say, or AKA the original 1985 phone book. Because I've seen the miniseries, you know, both versions of it. So I actually watched it when it first came on TV in like 1990. I was there glued to my TV every night watching it, and then I've seen the trimmed down version where they just show you everything that happened in 58, and then part 2 is everything that happens in 85. And it doesn't jump around Tarantino style.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's half the fun of the movie.
I know.
Or I mean, of the book. Well, the movie and the book.
Yeah, and did you hear that they're going to be filming a feature film remake of it this year?
I had heard that. If it doesn't have Tim Curry, I'm just not really interested.
I don't know, man. It sounds interesting. Curry's great. Did you ever hear the story about when they were doing like initial screen tests with him in the clown suit, and they had additional prosthetics? It wasn't just a clown suit; like they had, you know, red slitted reptilian contact lenses, then like fake vampire teeth. You know, good-looking fake vampire teeth, but still fake fangs.
Right.
And you know they're trying to have him reverse his lines, and after a while he called timeout, and they're like, well, then what's the matter? And he said, well, look, guys, you know, I'm trying to give it everything I got here, but these appliances are really getting in the way of my performance. They're like, well, come on, you know, we have these specially made. You know what the prop guys spent on these? You know, they're scary. They make the characters like, well, tell you what, let's try it my way. Let's do a run without the appliances, just the clown suit, and I guarantee you, I can make it scary. And this is a testament to what just a great physical and character actor Tim Curry is. After he did the take, without the extra prosthetics, he scared pretty much everyone on the crew so bad they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to shelve these. And they just had him do it in only the clown suit, and he sold the rest of it with just his performance.
I believe that.
Except for a couple scenes, where there's like a transformation or something, but yeah, he just nailed it. But yeah, I'm reading the book now, and yeah, well, you can tell that King got to the point where he had enough clout. He's like, I don't need an editor anymore. I'm not accepting your cuts.
Yeah.
Because I've just spent the last few weeks digging into one of my novels and largely just trimming out extraneous stuff, and I'm reading it and I'm going, oh, good lord, this is the opposite of my entire mindset right now.
It's really sad. I am just drawing a blank on his name now. Dinar Kuntz. Sorry, I was thinking it's the other guy. They killed off all the horror writers in America, got gathered together in a big auditorium in 1986, and they killed all of them. So the only people who survived were Dinar Kuntz and Stephen King and Peter Straub. Every other horror author in the country just lost their career. They're dead. They're gone. They're buried. But Dinar Kuntz, you could tell for a long time, his early books are lean, they're quick, they're mean. You get all the crap cut out, and then it's like you can almost, when you're reading them in chronological order, you hit that one book where there's just flab. Not a ton of flab, but enough flab to notice. And then after that, it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I've heard happens, is that when you're a green young newbie just coming up in the world, that's why sometimes a writer's first novel is the best, because it's the most polished, because chances are it's been subjected to sometimes years of revision, so it can get past the gatekeepers, so you can find an agent who will read it and fall in love with it, who can then shop around to an acquisitions editor, well, actually probably first an intern who will read it and love it, but then eventually an acquisitions editor. Then the acquisitions editor's got to convince the publisher, and more importantly the marketing guys, that this book is worth it, so that book needs to be all it can be. But then if you actually do get lucky enough to build a fan base and get onto some bestseller lists, if you get enough clout, writers really hate third parties messing with their babies, you know what I mean? Like, each word is just as important as the last. So, yeah, they start being able to say, you know what, thanks for the suggestions, editor, but nah, I'm not going to cut anything. Sorry.
At some point, the lady who was writing, J.K. Rowling, hit that. And you can really tell in the last, 2 or 3 novels, especially the last one of the Harry Potter series.
Yeah, I've heard.
It just needed... They spend half the book camping in the woods whining to each other.
That's bad.
All of that could have been cut. All of that could have been just chopped out. Because there wasn't anything happening that told us anything we really needed to know. It's what most people nowadays call character development, which is 2 characters sitting around emoting at each other. And that's not character development. That's just dialogue. And dialogue is important. It can be great and exciting. It can pop. It can give you a sense of a character just quickly. But at the same time, if all they're doing is sitting around yapping at each other, you just get bored.
In case you're just joining us on Geek Gab, Daddy Warpig and I are currently second-guessing the career moves of people far more successful than we are.
Infinitely more successful than we will ever be.
We live in solid gold houses and drive rocket cars and sleep on stacks of $100 bills.
Yeah, but I mean, even like Tim said in Galaxy Quest, it doesn't take a great actor to recognize a bad one.
Right.
And it doesn't take a great author to recognize when somebody who's an author has put flab in their work. One of my favorite movies is That Thing You Do.
Oh yeah.
Tom Hanks. And there's two versions of it. There's the theatrical version, and then there's the director's cut.
Oh.
And the theatrical version cooks. It moves along at a rapid fire pace. Each scene builds on the next logically. You don't need any more connective tissue, and it just moves. And that's what the movie's. That's why it's fun. That's why it's exciting. Is because this is a rocket rise to stardom, and the speed at which the movie works makes you as slightly disoriented and giddy as the events that are happening to the characters. If you'll allow me to get way off into
Please.
Pure artistic abstractness. That's why the movie works. The director's cut has extra material added all over, and it kills the movie. It's no longer fast-paced. It's no longer fun. It's no longer exciting. It's not a ton of extra material. It's just the tiniest amount of extra material just kills the entire movie. And it was just an eye-opener to me when I saw it, to realize how very, very little, like 10 or 30 seconds added to a scene, turns something that's fast-paced and exciting to something that is flabby and slow, and then to like translate that into writing anything is just a real eye-opener when you realize it does not take all that much to make something slow and boring.
You're right. Oh, and by the way, so I just found an article on 2015 remake of It.
Okay.
So it looks like they got Cary Fukunaga, who directed Jane Eyre in 2011. Okay. And, he is slated to begin principal photography on the first of two films based on It. And he's been signed on as co-screenwriter. He might not direct the second one, but yeah, they're going to do it in two parts. And yeah, it looks like the first one is going to be the 1958 story, and the second part is going to be the 1985 story, at least right now.
No! That's the wrong way to do that. That's.
It sounds risky.
And I'll tell you why. The fun of It. I can't say this anymore because it's been so long I don't remember.
I could probably help you.
Is that how the book goes?
No.
No, it starts off in the modern day, weird shit starts happening, and then you hit flashbacks.
No, not quite. It just jumps around and head hops all over the place. It starts with Georgie Denborough in 1957, actually. Like in October. It starts with the little toy boat going down the gutter.
Okay.
That little paper boat. And yeah, then it goes to modern day, and then it goes to like 1980, and then 1906, and well, actually, chapter 2 is 85. The incident where those dudes throw that guy off a bridge.
Okay.
But yeah, the point is, you're right. It's non-linear. It goes back and forth and sideways. It's almost Falconerian at points.
Oh. But
yeah.
Stephen King can pull that off because he's just so talented.
Yeah, he's paid his dues.
As far as a writer goes. Okay, so good book, a little bit flabby because, well, it's Stephen King. If you like Stephen King, then this is one of his good, really good books before he started getting way, way out there. Like Dreamcatcher was terrible. And it was a terrible movie, so.
Yeah, I skipped that one.
For good reason. Stephen King killed me off being a fan when I read the last 3 or 4 books, the last 3 books of the Gunslinger series, and I haven't read anything he's written since then. Apparently, he got like genius after that, but those 3 books are terrible, and I just stopped reading Stephen King after that. I
don't fully blame you because I tried reading through The Dark Tower. I forced my way through Wizard and Glass, which I think is book 4.
Yes.
which is just the flashback. It's like 90% flashback.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I got like 2/3 of the way through Wolves of the Caliber. Like, okay, I got to put this down now. I'm done, and I haven't finished the Dark Tower. And I've heard what the ending of the Dark Tower is. Like, I'm glad I didn't finish the Dark Tower. But since then, I have read 11/22/63, which came out in 2011. That's really good.
That's the one about the assassination of JFK.
Yes, that I actually first heard about in like Stephen King's afterword to The Gunslinger Born, the Jay Lee comic book adaptation of Wizard and Glass, oddly enough.
Which I owned. I own, actually.
Awesome.
It's in one of my boxes.
Sweet. Okay. Did you enjoy that book?
Oh, yeah. I thought that was incredible. The comic adaptation was amazing. I thought it was much better than his book.
Okay, I'm glad it's not just me. That's exactly what I thought. Because I read the book first, and they're like, oh, hey, here's a Gunslinger comic, and I was reading it, I'm like, wait a minute. Because it took me a minute to realize what it was. I'm like, this works. Stephen King should write more comic book scripts like American Vampire. I thought that was good, too. But, yeah, so 11/22/63 is really good.
The good thing that came out of Wolves of the Kala, the one redeeming quality, is he finally developed the Baroque pseudo-English tongue enough to where you could sprinkle those phrases in with any normal sentence and make it feel foreign enough that you know you're on an alien planet, but familiar enough that it's readable for English readers. And the reason why that's important is because when they went back to write the comic, they had all of that language available that they could stick in there that wasn't in the original novel. And so it makes the comic, which is just the backstory, or just the flashback, sorry, so much more textured and interesting to have those idioms, those turns of phrases, all of that just sprinkled in here and there. It's not ladled on. And it makes it actually a much better story. And they also bring in some material that's sort of implicitly in the background of the series that never shows up in the series because it got put together in a Dark Tower encyclopedia. They brought in some of that material that gets stuck in here and there that you don't get in the novel and you don't get in any of the novels. And that actually, they pick just enough of it out that illuminates the actual story just enough to make it all interesting and cool. And so they had all this material available to them that had been produced, and they could finally bring it together with the story to make a much better story than the novel that was published.
That's fascinating. But yeah, I agree. That did start to happen. Now that I'm thinking about it, that by the fifth book, the world was lived in enough that all those secondary world elements started to feel organic and natural. You know what I mean?
And that's a real difficulty when you're writing a story. You want the audience to be aware of important or just colorful aspects of the world. Like, if in this world women are in charge of law, they are lawyers, they are negotiators, they are judges, but they're not in charge of military or government. You want characters in there, they know about it, and you need to communicate that to the audience. And ideally, you want to communicate it in a completely transparent way where it doesn't stop the story. They don't have to read long blocks of texts, but it doesn't seem arbitrary or awkward. That's the ideal. That's what you want to get to, is just a naturalistic way of embedding it in the characters where you, the author, know it well enough that the characters know it, that they just act like that's the way it's supposed to be. They accept it as natural, and the audience finds out about it because it's natural. That's the way things are. And what you're describing is that Stephen King had finally reached the point where he knew the world well enough that the gunslinger could just be who he was. And if you read the first 2/3 of the book, you read all the good parts of the book. When he goes to that little town that asks him for help, how he is manipulating them into asking him for help, the discussions that he brings to the tales that they relate, all of that is actually world building coming through in a very naturalistic way, which is not Stephen King's strong suit, because he doesn't do that. He doesn't do world building. He sits down, he writes a novel, and then he edits the novel, and he never really does any world building except as it occurs to him as he's writing a novel. He's just so damn talented. He doesn't have to do any of that, and people will still find his novels entertaining.
Yeah, what he doesn't do is outlining beforehand.
Yeah.
He's a pantser, as they're called.
So he made up this world. He made up what do they call it? Midworld. Made up Midworld all as he's writing those short stories back in the 70s, and then as he's written the novels from, I think the second one came out in like 1984, 1985, 1986, 1986. And then as he's been writing the novels, he's been developing the world more and more, and finally reached the point where he could naturalistically depict it in that fifth novel, and then they had that material available. That's why the first 2/3 are all right, and the last third just went off the rails. That's when everything started to fall apart.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Stephen King's world building and how he can just apparently do it off the cuff and organically like that. Another writer that I talked to, James May, once summed up speculative fiction world building better than anyone I've ever heard, and to horribly butcher what he said, it's about constructing a set of rules and then trying to game your own system in interesting ways to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really, really simple metaphor here. So you could picture a secondary speculative world as just a room, a 10 by 10 room with 4 walls. And so then your world is those 4 walls, that's the system, and then you have a character trapped in there, and how that character gets out without breaking any of the rules you've set up is the story. There's the character, the conflict, the world building. And you can't just, have a genie suddenly materialize, like, okay, I'll teleport you out of here. No, you've got to have the character be resourceful and do what the character can with what the character has.
Or if you're going to have a genie teleport them out, then what has to happen next is that there's some problem that comes out because of it. The genie teleported them out, and so now they're enslaved. They have to do 3 tasks for the genie before they can get free, and that's your story.
Exactly,
which actually that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, hey, write it down. And that's a Deus Ex Machina, which, contrary to what a lot of people say, is not always bad. I mean, it's a trope, and they've been around so long because they're successful. But the thing with the Deus Ex Machina is you've got to set it up. So the genie bottle has got to be there in your initial description of the room. It's got to be there on a shelf. So, by the way, we have a question from the chat.
I saw that. Go ahead and read it.
Okay. This is from Bradford Walker. At what point do I want to find someone else to edit versus doing it myself? That's an excellent question, because a major problem that a lot of budding writers have is they answer that with never. They never get another set of eyes on it. Either they do a draft and then never show it to anyone, put it in a shoebox, put it in the closet, and forget about it. Or on the other end, there are some really cocky folks who think, oh, I nailed this, and then they just put the raw manuscript out on Amazon or something. And it contributes to the tsunami of crap out there, because 90% of everything is crap.
I'm going to make a statement with absolute, utter certainty and authority that you should be aware this is not based on anything personal that I have myself done, but is rather based on hearing opinions from other authors. This would be my first answer. You want to send it out to a professional editor that either you pay or somebody else is paying to edit your manuscript after you've put it through your writing group. If you don't belong to a writing group, join a writing group, let them read your novel 1 chapter at a time, and when you've gone through and done all of that, you don't have to do it 2 or 3 times. 1 time is enough with a writing group. When they've done that, then if it's good enough that you think it's good enough to take to publishing, then you want to have some kind of editor take a look at it.
Very good, yeah. That's a good opinion, and your mileage will vary. It depends on the writer and the skill level and the genre and type of story. What I do is I do a first draft. Well, I'm an outliner, so I do an outline, then I do a first draft based on the outline. But even though I've done an outline, I know my first draft is going to suck. It just will. I know
Yeah.
myself. So I then I do a second draft on my own. That is one that's fit for the writing group, for my beta readers. Because I don't actually have a writing group I physically meet with, because I just haven't been able to find one in my area. But I have some great folks online that, due to the marvels of internet technology, I can collaborate with, and I get their feedback, and I don't automatically implement every change that every one of them says. What I look for is if 2 or 3 or 4 of them are having a problem with the same thing,
Yep.
that's something I've got to change.
Yep.
Once is a fluke, twice is a coincidence, third time is proof. Okay.
I learned that from 3rd edition D&D.
Excellent. Once again, Monty Cook shows us the way. But
Well,
yeah. Then at that point, then I send it to my editor. Because I have an editor, but
people who played 3rd edition D&D, there were like 10,000 variant ranger classes online. And what that said to me is there's a problem with the ranger that people are trying to fix. Doesn't mean any one solution is the right solution. It just means there's a problem with the ranger that someone's trying to fix. And that's where I learned that is I immediately understood that, oh, if somebody's making 5 different versions of the same feat, or 50 different people are making 5 different versions of the official feat that's in the rulebook, or an official prestige class, or a class, or a weapon, or whatever, that means there's a problem with that somewhere. None of their solutions may be right, but there's a problem there that needs to be addressed, and I memorized that, and I've applied that to every project I've done since then.
Right, that's really important, because that is the difference between beta readers and a professional editor. I've heard on the Writing Excuses podcast the analogy made that beta readers are like people who test drive a car. They're lay people, and they're like, oh, there's a weird rattle. There's a funny smell coming from the air conditioner. They might not know what's wrong, but they know something's wrong. And if multiple of them have the same problem, you should pay attention to it and look into it. An editor is like a professional mechanic who's like, something is wrong and it's this. Because I know Brandon Sanderson has said that his writers group, which contains other professional writers now, but at least in the early days, his beta readers would say, oh, well, I had this problem. Something felt right. I was confused. I was bored here. I think it's this. They'd almost always be wrong. Like, they'd be right that it didn't work, but then you give it to Moshe Feder, his editor, you're like, oh, here's why it's not working, and Moshe would always be right. It was just this light bulb coming on eureka moment. So that's, I suppose we should have answered this in reverse, that what an editor does for you should be the basis of when you send it to an editor versus your writing group. Because your writing group will tell you where there are problems, but not necessarily what to fix. The editor will tell you what needs fixing.
And I would say one of the things implicit in that discussion is that a writing group is not 2 people or 3 people. You should have, you don't want to have too many people, but you want enough people with different enough opinions so that you actually reach that, 2 to 3 people objecting and showing you a problem. So 5 to 10 people. Any more than that, it's too many, because you're going to be expected to read and contribute as well. But any less than 5, you're not going to have enough different opinions to where you can say, oh, yeah, these 3 people didn't like it.
Exactly.
And sometimes you may not fit in with the people, so you want to find a writing group who you can stand, who can give you feedback that doesn't make you want to punch them.
Right, and you still want people who challenge you. You don't want a bunch of sycophants like, oh, everything you write is as divine oracles from on high. No, you want people who might be able to disagree with you or have slightly different tastes than you, because the reading public is probably going to have people who disagree with you and have slightly different tastes and like different things.
And not friends and family.
You want it... Exactly.
Okay, he has another question?
Sure, why don't you go ahead and read it?
For writing, what's worked best for entertaining a reader while informing them of how the unreal elements of your environment works? I want to say this. I am not a published fiction writer. I was published in a newspaper So I'm a published journalist. Take my advice for what it's worth. I worked in newspapers. I wrote opinion columns, reviewed TV shows, wrote news stories. Brian, on the other hand, is a published fiction author. He's got a story. Okay, he's got a story published in Sci-Fi Magazine. It's great. We talked about it 3-4 episodes ago. So he's a published fiction writer. So if you want to divide up our experience that way, neither of us are super experienced. We're not 10-year veterans, but both of us have done writing for pay in different spheres. So we're not complete noobs as far as that goes. We're not just saying this by talking out of our ass. We have had experience.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of overlap too, because like you're working on a role-playing game and a short story now. I've been published in my local newspaper a few times for editorials, so there's also some overlap. I mean, at some point, the basic mechanics of writing has some carryover. So no, I think your qualifications are just fine. Daddy Warpig, don't even worry about it. So, do you want to tackle this question first, or should I?
Yeah, and actually, it's a more fundamental question than that, because people act like world building is a strange thing that you add on for speculative fiction, and that's all you need. It's bullshit. And let me tell you why. You have to do world building for a mundane novel, completely normal novel set in the modern world. What kind of world building do you have to do? Well, who is your character? When was he born? What does he look like? What job does he work? Is he married or divorced? Does he have kids? Is he, what are his hobbies? What does he like? All of that is world building. All of that is information about the character that lets the audience make sense of the story, of the world in which the story is occurring. Some of them may be important. Some of them may not be important. Some of them may be red herrings to distract the audience from what you're really doing. And so people all the time act like world building is this completely bizarre thing that only exists in science fiction and fantasy, and it doesn't. It exists in every story. So the question you're asking is, how do you let the audience know what's going on with a character's life without being boring or pedantic or lecturing? And I would say this: people are going to tell you action reveals character. And they will say, well, you're going to give your character, the persona you're writing about, you're going to give them situations that they have to do things in, and how they make their choices shows who they are and what's going on. And I want to take a step back, because I think there's something more fundamental than that. And it applies whether you're writing in first person, third person, omniscient, or close third person being the most common. Attitude reveals character. Mm-hmm. So you are writing about your character. He goes into a store, and there is a woman there with her hair cut in a mohawk. Your character will have an opinion about that. Maybe he doesn't notice it and he doesn't care. Maybe he notices it and he thinks, I walked into the store, the lady behind the counter had an awesome mohawk, and I thought, yeah, that's great. That's a terrible writing, by the way, but I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Maybe he's disapproving, but he thinks, oh, that's okay, I understand she's young. Maybe he's attracted to her. He thinks, oh, wow, I want to hit on her and get her phone number. Maybe he's repulsed. He thinks, people today are wearing their hair all ugly. I hate it. His attitude, the way he describes her, does he describe her as the cute alternative chick behind the counter? Does he describe her as the multicolored maned freak standing at the window? Both of those phrases tell you different things about who this person is, right? Just the description that you use of a specific situation, of a specific event or object or person they encounter, lets you know how they feel about that other person. And I'm only talking about one detail of your question, because your question is really complicated. It could take a lot of time. But let's say you're writing in a fantasy world, and elves and dwarves hate each other. So what you want to do is realize when you're writing your elf, when he's reacting to dwarves, he should describe them in disapproving or condescending or contemptuous ways. Describe them as pikers or shorty or whatever, whatever curse words are available to you. maybe a little bit
I
more
was like Peck.
complicated. What? Go ahead.
I was like Peck.
Peck, yeah. If you want to go a little bit more complicated and you're feeling guilty because he's trying to break free of his elven culture, you could have his first reaction be, this short son of a bitch walked up to me, and then he feels guilty. He's like, oh, wait, no, I shouldn't have thought that. And that reveals something different about the character. And so that's just one specific way to make setting details implicit, is how you describe things in close third person or first person. They work better than in third person omniscient, which is old fashioned now and not very often very used. So I'll just put that to the side. How they react, what their emotions are, what their attitudes are, how the description goes, that reveals so much about the character that is fun, it's interesting, and by the way, that's what gets the audience to buy into the character. That's what gets them to care about the character. That's what gets them to want to go on this journey through the story with your character, is that they are interesting. They are colorful. They have opinions, and whether they say them out loud or not so that other characters hear them, the audience hears them, and that's what makes them love or hate the character. Brian.
Yeah, that actually is a really good point. That's what I was going to say. It's almost easier to give him advice for what not to do when revealing secondary world elements. And again, it goes for the races, the magic system, the geography. One thing is, like with the magic system, if magic is normal in this world, if it's basically the technology, then you got to be extra careful because people won't think it's weird, and they'll think like, oh, my fireball spell didn't work with the same sort of downcast irritation as the power going out in your house. But what you don't want to do, what you do not want to do, is, like you said, go into omniscient narration and deliver a treatise on the history of magic and how it works in your world, and just do this aside that breaks up the flow of the narrative, that breaks up the pacing. So you really can't get away with just delivering some exposition on history from the narrator and a speculative work, unless you're Mike Flynn, and you're not Mike Flynn, so probably should stay away from that. Should probably do what Warpig said and try to get it across through the action and character reactions. One short you can do is come up with a character, a type of character called the Watson, who is someone less experienced and less in the know than the protagonist is, who can ask, well, what did you do there? Explain that to me. And that's kind of a cheat. You can have the wizard explain how magic works briefly to the Watson, who doesn't know how magic works.
Or Harry Potter.
So basically get a layman and an expert and pair them together.
If your main character is Harry Potter, where he's never been in the magic world before, and then you can just explain things to Harry Potter while, also explaining them to the audience.
Yeah, exactly. You get a twofer there. Really quick, because I've only got like 3 minutes left. I really want to tackle Brad's final question here.
Okay.
Okay. Because I've been researching this a lot. And what he asks is, basically for someone with no established brand, what's better, independent self-publishing or the traditional route? And I have come around on this recently. I used to have a pretty strong opinion, even as recently as a year ago, at least in my situation, that traditional publishing is basically the only way. It was the only way to go, because I thought that with self-publishing, it's, even if you write a good book, and let's face it, most self-published books, most books aren't that good. I mean, I forget who wrote the law that said 90% of everything is crap. So it's no insult to... Sorry?
Sturgeon, Theodore Sturgeon.
Right. Yes, Sturgeon's Law, I knew you'd know that. So that's no insult to anyone. My first works were definitely garbage, because you gotta make your bones, gotta pay your dues. But anyway, I just thought, well, there are like 500,000 competitors out there. It's going to be impossible for my work to find an audience. But I've been researching it more and more. I've been reading the entire blog from start to finish of an author named Joe Conrath. I don't know if anyone's familiar with him. He writes mysteries and thrillers and suspense and whatnot. But Joe just busted his hump breaking into traditional publishing. He wrote and made submissions for 12 years, got over 500 rejections, finally made it in, worked like a dog, visiting like 1,000 bookstores or something ridiculous, hand selling his books, doing impromptu signings to earn out his advance, which was, by all accounts, pretty small. It was good for a mid-lister, but it wasn't six figures. So he actually earned out his books and then got dropped. Just unceremoniously, his publisher that he slaved for dropped his whole line, even though he was making the money. So it's like, okay, this business is kind of broken.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've got these trunk novels. Let's see what happens when I put them on Amazon. And today he's a millionaire through self-publishing. Now, will that happen for you? Almost certainly not. Like Brad said earlier, it's a crapshoot, and yeah, that's really the way I've come to think of it, is that whether you go the traditional route or self-published, it's a gamble. I mean, there are no guarantees in publishing at all. But I think that right now, in this year of our Lord 2015, self-publishing gives you a bit of an edge because it gives you all the control. If you submit a novel to a traditional New York publisher and they pick it up, you lose pretty much all control over that project. Like, you were there to make revisions, but again, unless you're J.K. Rowling or Stephen King, you will not get to choose cover art. You will not get to choose how much it gets promoted or how much money you get to advertise it. You won't get to choose how big the print run is, even necessarily what the cover blurbs are, what the formatting's like. With self-publishing, you choose all that, but keep in mind, it's really not self-publishing. It's just going into a business as a publisher with yourself as your only client. So when you self-publish, keep in mind, you're taking on all the responsibilities and duties of a publisher.
Including publicity.
Including publicity, everything. But, again, thanks to the internet, thanks to Amazon, it's possible now. So if you want to be able to decide what cover your book has, how to market it, when it comes out, if you don't want to wait 18 months for the time you turn in your manuscript for it to be available for sale, if you want the print book and the ebook released at the same time, self-publishing is really your only option. And otherwise, yeah, you can get on the submission carousel, hope an agent likes your book enough to shop it around to editors who like it enough to shop it to their publisher and their marketing guys, and then hope that they give you enough of a push to make it a success, and then hope they don't drop you, because only 1 in 5 books published by a mainstream publisher succeed. I mean, the sad truth is, most first-time authors do not get to be second-time authors in the traditional system.
And one other thing, too. You only have one chance to make a good impression on a member of your audience. And so you want to make sure that whatever you put out there is the best possible thing that you can put out there.
Yes, either way. Whatever route you choose, yes, do that.
I read a lot of novels that are independently published, and they're crap. To where, I see the word smash words near a novel, I don't want to read it. I can't even bring myself to read it because every single smash words novel I've read has been crap. So if you want to rise above the shit, make sure that what you publish, self-publish or send to an editor or whatever, is actually good enough to get out there to impress an audience member to where they remember your name and they want to read more of what you make. Exactly.
Perfect. And here's some tips on how to do that. So if you go the traditional publishing route, write a first draft. Whether you outline or you're an organic writer, that's up for you to decide. You're going to have to try both to figure out what your preference is. It's probably going to be some mix. But write a first draft, write a second draft, get a writing group, run it through your writing group, get their feedback. If there are points of feedback that intersect, and if you're getting multiple complaints about the same thing, seriously consider changing that. Then do another draft, and only when you are confident that it's as good as you can make it, then start sending it out to editors and agents. But
and at the meantime, start on your next book.
Yes, and then immediately start. Yeah, write every day. Got to be strict with yourself. Do it every day. If you're going the traditional publishing route, Do all of that except for submitting it to agents and editors, but then hire a freelance editor to give it a final polish. And you may even want to hire three. You might want to get a copy editor, a line editor, and an editor, because that's what public houses subject manuscripts submitted the traditional way to. But just get that as polished to mirror shine as you possibly can with all the help you can get. Then hire a professional artist. And again, you're going to have to look at samples, interview them, because you're hiring an employee on a work-for-hire basis, because you are now the CEO of your own company if you self-publish. Get art you're happy with, then hire a professional formatter to turn your MS Word doc into something the Kindle can understand and isn't full of formatting errors. Then you got to do the same thing with your ad copy. Make sure that your book blurb and your description and your synopsis that appear on Amazon are as enticing and as good a description as they can be to attract people. And
pimp that mother.
Pimp it and experiment. The main important thing is experiment. Like Joe has changed the cover art on each of his books like 8 times or something. He is fiddled with the ad copy like 40 times each. He constantly experiments with pricing, because the sweet spot for price is just it's a mobile target. It keeps moving. So I might want to put a book out at $3.99, and if it's not selling great, move it to 99 cents for a month or a quarter. And just so it works. Some people sell better at 99 cents. Some sell better at $6. You know, it's.
If you want your series to sell, if you want it to keep on selling, if you want to get a backlist going, you have to keep on putting out books.
Yes.
If you're an independent publisher, that's something that Sarah Hoyt says on her blogs. As soon as she stops, if she hasn't had a book release in a series recently, the sales drop off.
Yeah, and the same is true. Traditional publishing really would like you to put out at least one book a year. A lot of pros I talk to say 2 to stay in the public eye. You want to put 2 books out, and if that means having like your fantasy series and then your sci-fi series and alternate them, that's one way to do it. If your publisher will let you write in a different genre, because sometimes they don't like that, or you have to take on a pseudonym to do the other series. And if you're self-published, yeah, just get as many books out there that are of high quality as possible, because the main difference between the two is with traditional publishing, you get your book out there, it sits on Barnes & Noble's shelf for, if you're lucky, 6 months, and then it's gone. And it gets remaindered and returned. And that is your window to make sales. So traditionally published books spike in sales when they're first released and then precipitously decline. With self-publishing, it's the opposite. Because there's unlimited shelf space on the internet, you're getting into what's called the long tail. You know, you're in it for the long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as Joe Conniff likes to say. So get as many books on your digital bookshelf as you can, because each one exponentially increases your likelihood of being found by a fan. They're like, oh, I like this guy. I'll go back and read his back catalog. So you're totally right. You want to build a big online presence and give potential readers a lot of choices, a lot of chances to find you.
Okay, we have got to go because we are over time, which very rarely happens here at the show. Here at Geek Gab. Do you have anything?
We got on a subject I like to flog.
Do you have anything else you want to say before we head out?
Oh, I've said enough.
Okay.
Thanks for the questions, Brad. They were awesome.
By the way, Joe Conrath, the millionaire self-publisher, I put a link to his blog in the description, so you can go check that out. And let's get going. Okay, this is Geek Gab. We're here every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 hour. Anything geeky goes. All play, no work. You can check out all our back shows. We've got them up on YouTube, and this show will be up shortly after we get off the air. You can read me, Daddy Warpig, at daddywarpig.com. You can read Brian. The link, his blog is called Kairos. The link to that is in the description because I can't spell his name. If you like the show, subscribe, click the up thumb. You can catch both of us on Twitter. Brian Niemeier is, and me, Daddy Warpig. I'm at Daddy_Warpig. Both of those are in the description. And the House of Geekery at daddywarpig.com. We appreciate you all turning in. Tell your friends about us. Have them check us out if they like it. If they love it, come back again. We are here every Sunday. We are signing off. We will be back.